So welcome back to another edition of the Common Constitutionalist video podcast, and I'm Brent, the Common Constitutionalist. And today we're going to talk about the Constitution, and we're going to talk about one of the liars in the Democrat Party. I know there's a lot to choose from, liars in the Democrat Party. Most of them are liars in the Democrat Party. But we're going to pick just one liar and what he said about the Constitution and what a crock it is today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You are listening.
No, you limey. They're not listening. They're watching.
The Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Alright, so we are back, and like I said, I wanted to talk about a Democrat liar. A liar from the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. Again, who to choose from? There are so many. We'll choose one in particular. But first I want to talk about the Ivy League schools, the elite schools. Oh, the Ivy League. My notes, by the way. Where the best and the brightest go to be trained to be captains of industry, selfless civil servants, and of course, experts on the Constitution and constitutional law, don't you know? Right? Of course. No people are smarter than the graduates of Brown University, Columbia University, Cornell, Dartmouth, the University of Pennsylvania, Princeton, Yale, and of course, Harvard University. So, when somebody like, say, a Harvard law grad tells you about the Constitution, you pretty much think you can take that to the bank, right? That he knows the Constitution better than you. He studied it. He studied constitutional law at Harvard, and you should be good, right? Not so much. You would think so, but what about if this certain individual graduated from a lesser-known Harvard Law specialty school, not Harvard Law School, but Harvard Lie School. Yes, the Ivy League annex that teaches aspiring young government hacks and bureaucrats how to lie their butts off, to do it with a straight face and with such authority that even Al Sharpton would be jealous of their ability to deceive. Indeed. DNC Chairman Tom Perez. Now, you may have already seen this video, you may have already heard, but we're gonna recap this and then we're gonna discuss it. DNC Tom Perez is just such a liar. He graduated magna cum laude from the Harvard Lie School and has recently demonstrated his craft in a speech that he gave at Indiana University Law School. He does this speech where he revealed little-known secrets of the Constitution. Certainly ones that I didn't know. Now, I'm no constitutional scholar, but I've read the Constitution more than just a few times. At any rate, you recall that Tom Perez, who was literally installed at the now remember, think back, he was literally installed at the DNC by the elitist Democrat ruling party, all right? Because they didn't want to run the DNC, because they didn't want Keith Ellison, the Black Lives Matter type black activist and anti-Semite running the DNC. So they literally stole it away from Ellison and gave it to Tom Perez. A la, apparently, the way Trump stole the election from Hillary. Yeah, sure, okay. They needed somebody like Perez who would better represent, other than Ellison, would better represent the Democrat hierarchy. You know, the amoral, lying sack of crap that he is and that they are. So he's a perfect representation of the DNC. But seriously, don't lawyers, now I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I didn't go to law school, I just as a general rule, lawyers bother me. At any rate, no matter what kind of law you decide to get into, don't you have to study the Constitution and constitutional law? Well, I suppose not. at least not according to what Tom Perez said. LawNews.com writes, quote, Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez, excuse me, I have a little bit of scratch in my throat, so I'm sucking on a lozenge. Sorry. Let me begin again. LawNews.com writes that Democrat National Committee Chairman Tom Perez spoke at an Indiana University Law School this week. The name of the talk was The Lawyer's Duty, Social Justice, Racial Justice, Economic Justice, but how Tom Perez ended up his discussing the Electoral College, and they say he made a huge error in the process. Quote, the Electoral College is not a creation of the Constitution, Perez says, unquote, Perez says. Quote, it doesn't have to be there, unquote. Really? Okay, so let's do one thing at a time. First off, the lawyer's duty thing. Let's cover that real quick. A lawyer's duty is to uphold legal process. As a public citizen, which an attorney at law is, a lawyer should seek improvement of the law, the administration of justice, and the quality of service rendered by the legal profession. A lawyer's duty isn't bigoted favoritism like social, racial, and economic justice. That's not what a lawyer's duty is, Mr. Perez. Of course, that's what activist lawyers do and activist judges do today. So maybe you got a little maybe there was a misunderstanding as far as that's concerned, because everybody thinks going into law school now is advocacy, not just upholding the legal process and blind justice, which we'll get to in a second. By the administration, and this is exactly what I was saying. The administration of justice is meant to be blind to justice, as in Lady Justice, you know, the lady with the scales, sometimes in the right hand, sometimes in the left hand, and with the blindfold over her eyes, like Roman Justitia or the Greek goddess Dyke was the originator of the scales. And the scales represent weighing of the support versus opposition. Basically, that's what the scales mean. Or like the Egyptian god Anubis, which also held scales, and they were to measure the claims, certain claims against the feather of truth, is what they called it. That was in Egypt. But the blindfold, which wasn't added until the 16th century, it represents impartiality, and it's the, or at least it used to be, it's the ideal that justice should be applied without regard to wealth, power, or status. Now that's a great and high ideal, and I wish to heck we could keep to it. But it's one that's never been achieved because of humans and human nature. That's just the way it is. All right, we're not angels, and so we can't achieve these high ideals. We'd like to strive to, but we certainly can't. At least not on a regular basis we can't. So we all know this is basically a crock, and that we see two systems of justice play out all the time. And we hear about it, and we see about it, and we see it all the time. The people, us, have the properly applied form of blind justice at least most of the time. And the rich, the powerful, and politically connected have quite another, of course. Emphasis on politically connected. I'm going to get rid of this lozenge. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. I'm going to spit this lozenge out, have a drink, and we'll be right back to get on to our next segment.
You're watching the Common Constitutionalist video podcast.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Now, continuing on, like I said, the people like us, the normal plebes, the underlings, so to speak, the common folk, have the standard form of blind justice. At least we hope to have that. But the rich, the powerful, and the politically connected, particularly the politically connected, have a whole different, entirely different method of justice. And again, you don't even have to necessarily be rich. You need to be elitist, or the connected political elite to be able to get off of whatever you're charged with. Someone like, say, for example, someone like, bee just flew by. That's the dangers of being outside. Someone like swindler Bernie Madoff. Okay, so he was rich and he was powerful, but he still ended up in the big house, right? Yet he, if he was a made man, part of the crime syndicate of the DNC, the Democrat Party, the Obama administration, the Clintons, so on and so forth, he'd be out walking the streets today. It's that simple. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it, because that's what's going on right here and now. But unfortunately, he wasn't a connected, made man with the Democrat Party, the DNC, the Obamas, or the Clintons, so he's in prison for 150 freaking years. Okay, now, whether he deserves to be in prison for 150 years, you be the judge. That's not what this segment's about. I'm just talking about two completely separate sets of justice. Those for us and those for the elite politically connected. You don't have to be rich and famous and whatnot. All you need to do is know the right people in politics, the right judges, the right politicians, to get you off, the right attorneys who are connected to the judges to get you off and have you walk. You might pay a fine, or may have to go out and do some speeches or something like that, but that's as much as you're going to get as a slap on the wrist. If you get anything like Hillary Clinton, what the heck is she doing? Or Eric Holder, or any number of these politically connected hacks that are bureaucrats or politicians. They're just walking around the streets like nothing. And old Bernie Madoff, as bad as he was, he doesn't hold a candle to half of these scam artists in government, yet he's in prison for 150 freaking years. Why? Because he wasn't connected. He wasn't a made man, so to speak. Okay, so now to the meat of the heart of the matter. To Perez's idiotic statement that, what did he say? The Electoral College is not a creation of the Constitution. It doesn't have to be there. Well, I hate to say it, Bernie. In fact, it does have to be there because it is there. It's in Article 2, Section 1, and you can read all about it. Now, it says, not the whole article, but the gist of it, or the first paragraph or so, quote, each state shall appoint in such a manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding office of trust, that's a hot one, of office of trust, or at least back then it was, whatever, or profit in the United States shall be appointed an elector. Okay, in other words, if you're holding a senatorial or representative office or any office, civil service office of trust, you can't be an elector. That's a hot one. And the Article 2, Section 1 was slightly modified, although it didn't change a whole lot, in 1804 by the 12th Amendment. But other than that, it remains intact. And it is, and the Article 2, okay, after Article 1, there comes Article 2, so that's pretty important, don't you think, there, Tom? So Law News continues, quote, Perez may not like the Electoral College, given that fellow Democrat Hillary Clinton lost the presidential election despite winning the popular vote in November, but we use it for a reason. It's in the Constitution. So yes, it does have to be there unless we pass it, or pass an amendment to change it, unquote. And we know that's not going to happen. If you know the amendment process, they make it virtually impossible to change the Constitution on purpose. People don't just change it on a whim, the way Democrats would love to. If they thought that they could change the Constitution with executive action from Obama, we wouldn't have had a Constitution by now. Whatever. So I've read a lot of reports about, and articles over the past day or so, talking about Perez's statement, how ridiculous it was, and that somehow this was an error, or that he misspoke, or that it was some sort of it was mistaken, or that he misspoke, or it was a misstatement, or something like that. But he didn't misspeak. He lied. He did it on purpose, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Basically what he wanted to do, in my opinion, is that he was talking to a bunch of law students, mostly. I'm sure there were faculty members and other communists in the audience. All the faculty members and most of the administrators, the communists in the audience. And they probably aren't any more aware of the Constitution than that, you know, the trees behind me. Or at least the only thing they're aware of is how to try and get around it or skirt the Constitution. That's what they're expert at. That's what they teach at Harvard Law School. But I digress. And he lied, and in my opinion, it was to, basically the whole purpose of it was to plant a seed in the heads and the minds of the ignorant people, the students that were sitting there in the audience. And he's promoted as a constitutional law expert. He wanted to talk about the duties, you know, of lawyers and whatnot, and the Constitution. And so they're going to trust that he knows what he's talking about, right? And there's probably going to be, most people, I would hope, even the students, I would hope would say, that doesn't make any sense. Of course it's in the Constitution. But I guarantee you there are going to be some that, like the separation of church and state, for example. The separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. I'll give you my children. Not that you'd want them. They're pretty good kids. But I'll give you everything I own if you guys, or if anybody out there can find where it states separation of church and state in the Constitution. It doesn't. What it is a misinterpretation, a purposeful misinterpretation of the Constitution by leftist judges. That's what happens, is that what they can find stuff that's not in there and say it's there, and then they find stuff that's there and say it's not. Like, for example, the Electoral College. It's easy for Tom Perez, just like the separation of church and state isn't in the Constitution, it's easy to say that the Electoral College isn't in the Constitution when it clearly is. All you got to do is say it and keep repeating and repeating and repeating, and eventually people are going to say, gee, you know, he might be right. Maybe we're interpreting this all wrong. Or some stupid thing like that. It's completely asinine, but this is the way this kind of crap works. This is the way the leftist mind works. Whew, okay, here we go again. You know what? We're going to take another quick break so I can decompress, and then we'll be right back to wrap this baby up. Yeah. Alright, welcome back for the final segment of the video podcast of the Common Constitutionalist. And again, I'm Brent, I'm the Common Constitutionalist. So, at any rate, I read a lot of, again, to recap, I read a lot of reports and statements on, or reports and articles revolving around Perez's idiotic statement that the Electoral College isn't in the Constitution, it doesn't need to be there, and can go. Of course, then again, why would it need to go if it wasn't there in the first place? Whatever. Okay, so, and again, I think that this really was to like trial balloons. When politicians throw out trial balloons to see what's going to stick, what works with the people, what polls well with the people, they just throw these things out there, and the only purpose to this is the agenda. They're always mindful of their political, radical leftist agenda to rid us of the Constitution, to water it down to the point where it just doesn't exist the way we know it to anymore. That's what there is. So you have to always remember that the motive of these people, the underlying motive is always to push their leftist agenda. That's the underlying motive. There is no, it's not for racial justice or social justice or economic justice. It's always to push the radical leftist agenda. You always have to bear that in mind anytime these people open up their mouths. All right. So, but every one of these articles say that he was mistaken or misspoke or whatever. Well, obviously I know he lied, because you can't go through Harvard without learning the Constitution. You may not agree with anything it says, but you know what's in it, like Obama knows what's in it. He taught constitutional law. He knows what's in it. He just doesn't like anything that's in it. And the same with Tom Perez. He's cut from the same cloth. So that was my problem with these articles, is that they'll go and they'll state, yes, Tom Perez was mistaken. It is in the Constitution. Well, we all know it's in the Constitution. Why the hell is it in the Constitution? I haven't heard anybody, short of people like Mark Levin, who explains everything because he's such a freaking genius, or Dr. Arnn at Hillsdale College could shit you down and do a soliloquy for 3 hours on the Electoral College. But other than that, you don't hear these reports and what they say, yes, it's indeed, even Law News. Yes, it's in the Constitution. Why the crap is it in the Constitution? Maybe we as conservatives need to start teaching people why this stuff is in the Constitution, not just that it is. Well, here's why it's in the Constitution. So why does the Electoral College even exist? It exists basically so it's there to prevent a few heavily populated cities, states, or regions from overwhelming the entire electoral process during a presidential election. That's what it's there for. It's similar to the reasoning behind, you know how every state has a number of different congressmen depending on your population, but each state only has 2 senators. Why? Well, they're apportioned not by population, but you get 2 senators no matter if you're the smallest state, Rhode Island, or if you're the largest state, California or Texas or something like that. You only get 2 senators. And the reason is that the founders didn't want the big states, the more populous, humongous states, to overwhelm the small states and leave them basically locked out of the legislative process. That's the whole point of the 2 senators. It's the same with the Electoral College. If you were to go by just popular vote, you could get California, Michigan, Illinois, a couple of other leftist states with humongous cities with gazillions of people in them. They all vote Democrat and you win the election every single time because there's no Electoral College. That's the point of the Electoral College, to prevent a region, a city, a bunch of cities getting together, or a few huge states with these well-populated Democrat cities together, all voting in mass for Democrats or Republicans, whatever, and running the show ad infinitum. That's what it's for. That's what the Electoral College is for. If we didn't have an Electoral College, the campaign would last about maybe 6 weeks. Now, some would say, including me, that ain't a bad thing because I'm tired of these 18-month campaigns or 2-year campaigns. It's absurd. The minute a president is elected, the very next day the campaign for the next presidency starts 4 years ahead of time. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. But if we didn't have the Electoral College process, I'm in New Hampshire. We're a nothing state, all right? But we're important, okay? We're a bellwether state because we have some influence. And it's because of the Electoral College is the only reason states like us, or Delaware, or Rhode Island, or any of the flyover states with huge geographic area but small populations, they would be completely out in the cold. That's the point. Without the Electoral College, the only places you would have to go to campaign is in Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, maybe St. Paul, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Houston, Boston, New York City, Miami, Washington, D.C., and that's, other than that, that's about it. And the election's over and the Democrat wins with 98% of the vote. And that's because that's the only place they have to campaign. That's why the Electoral College exists. And this is what these other articles, they need to explain this stuff. Even if they don't agree with it, that's the way it works. Sheesh. And the point is that Perez knows this, Hillary knows this, Obama knows this, everybody, all the Democrats in power know this, which is why they want to get rid of the Electoral College, because it's killing them. Because most people aren't liberal, okay? In flyover country, most states are not liberal, which means that there's no way in heck they're ever going to do a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Electoral College. It's impossible. You're not going to get 38 liberal states to change the Constitution, which is what is required. Okay, real quick recap. To amend the Constitution, somebody needs to put up a constitutional amendment. It needs to be overwhelmingly voted on, affirmed by 2/3 of both the Senate and the House. The President doesn't sign off on it. The President has nothing at all to do with a constitutional amendment. It just completely passes him by. They can let him read it, but that's about it. He doesn't get a vote. Then it goes on to the states. And 38 states, or 3/4 of the states, have to ratify a constitutional amendment. Why do you think there's only been, what, 17 more constitutional amendments since our founding? I mean, that's ridiculous, but that's what it is. That's why they made it so hard, because the document is darn near perfect. And why do you need to change it? Well, the only reason people need to want to change it is because they're progressive, leftist, socialist, communist, whatevers. And that's why they want to change the damn thing, because they don't like it. Being dive bombed by a bee. Maybe he's a Democrat. Ha! Yeah, baby. So that's the reason why Perez said what he said. Is he's hoping that it's going to stick, that someone else will pick up the mantle and say, you know what? Maybe we are reading this wrong, or maybe we do need to get rid of it. And they're trying to find a loophole in the Constitution that's just simply not there. It's plain as day. It's not going to go away, and they can't stand it because they can't compete. It's that simple. So if they can't, that's the thing about Democrats, is conservatives, we compete on the platform of ideas. Okay, we compete over ideas. We're not out protesting. We're not out beating people, and we're not threatening people. We compete in the arena of ideas. Well, Democrats, leftists, the non-constitutionalists, they cannot compete in the arena of ideas. So this is all they have to go on, is lies, obfuscations, and trying to turn as many minds off to the Constitution as they can, so they can kind of worm their way in and hopefully try to change it through some, I don't even know how they think they're going to change it. But just denying it's not there isn't going to work. So this is the Common Constitutionalist, all revved up, baby. Yeah, this has been a good one. I like this. Yeah, I hope you have a great balance of the weekend. It's a lovely day. It's gotten warm out here in New England. All the trees are starting to change. Well, we're starting to get the leaf peepers up here already. Hotels are already filling up, and it's beyond me. Even when I didn't live up here, I didn't see the appeal of coming up here and driving around looking at a bunch of freaking trees changing color. But that's just me. At any rate, this is it. I'm out. You guys have a great weekend. See ya.